Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back for another book review. For this video, we're going to be once again diving into the Dead Souls universe by R.I. Polsgrove with the first book of their newest series, the Shadow Souls series, Shadow's Embrace. Now, it has taken me a while to finish this book, but I will explain more in detail as to why that is once we get further in. But I can say, this one definitely has me excited for future installments of this series, namely for the fact that it features one primary thing: vampires versus werewolves. So, let's get started, shall we? Now, first of all, Shadow's Embrace does take place from the viewpoint of Quinn, that being our main character, or at least one of the main four quartet of the Dead Souls universe, of Quinn, Rianne, Natalie, and Lucas. Now, this novel here in particular provides a nice little bridge in the timeline for Quinn's story, after his introductory novel, which is, of course, called Quinn. But this novel allows us to showcase more of his involvement in the vampire-werewolf war. We saw the beginnings of it at the very tail end of the Quinn novel, but Shadow's Embrace really helps us to settle in with Quinn and see how he himself grows as a character from this moment onward. Sort of, again, a bridging gap between Into the Darkness and then the Dead Souls universe. We did see glimpses of this before he meets Rianne in Funerlull, a previous work that I've covered on this channel, and a nice little short story, bit of a fluff piece. But Shadow's Embrace really gets us kicked off with Quinn immediately after he leaves for the New World at the end of his novel. Now, I will say one minor criticism I have is that this novel is more of a slow burn piece. However, that is for a very good reason, because while this novel can be very slow, it again acts as an introductory piece to get us more used to some of the new characters that are being introduced here, as well as the new settings, because this one does not take place anywhere here in the English continent. This one takes place in the New World. And, of course, it showcases the vampires versus werewolves. And I will say, having the werewolves as a main threat is a very nice little change of pace. This brings up more of a serious tone to the novels, really leaning into the more warlike state of all business, combat, training for future engagements, all that stuff. And Quinn has to take this time to establish the first base of operations for him and the vampiric forces that are coming into the New World, establishing new recruits, building a base of operations, a steady supply of food. All these things are necessary for any military strategy when you are entering into a new area, establishing base camp, everything of that nature, scouting out the enemy. And of course, with the pace that this novel goes at, it gives us more time to get to know many of the characters within Shadow's Embrace, including the one who turned Quinn in the first place, which, oh boy, that was a whole handbasket to uncover. With Quinn, his emotions about his progeny are very much mixed emotions and a lot of anger. But I will say, though, getting to meet some of these characters was definitely a fun time, as well as, again, establishing future storylines. And, of course, this also showcases Quinn's mindset after arriving in the New World, grieving for the loss of his mentor and practical father figure in Max, as well as learning that at one point Max was the lover and first husband of his grandmother. And that was always a shock and a half to find that out. Finding all these little interconnected pieces is always so fascinating in the lore for Dead Souls. But more than that, besides the grief of it, we also see Quinn himself growing as a leader within the vampire community. We saw glimpses of this before in the end of Quinn, but now we really get to see it more here when he is on his own. No longer being supervised, he has to grow himself as a leader. And it was honestly fascinating to compare and contrast Quinn and the tactics that he uses compared to that of his father. His father, of course, ruled through fear and an iron will. Quinn, however, takes a very different approach, rewarding those who are actually willing to consult with him, whether any plans that he has might seem off. He's willing to take advice, offer a reward for the ones who are willing to work for it, and punish only those who disobey him, or of course cause trouble for him and the vampires under his command. They choose to follow him, no problems. But if they choose to give him trouble, he will act swiftly to put it down, as he does so at one point in the novel, which I will try not to spoil here. But one thing I will say besides this, it doesn't show Quinn being strong all the time. See, the author is not afraid to show some of Quinn's more vulnerable moments alongside his moments of growth. Again, we see him grieving, we see him struggling with internal monologues. At one point, we actually see him struggling with the voice of his father, mentally derailing him in his own mind. It was a horrifying thing to read about. But at the same time, those with trauma who have experienced something like this, we all know that feeling. Having that negative voice in our head, bringing us down, constantly telling us that what we're doing, it will never be good enough. We all have that mental voice in our heads, and I feel like for some people, especially any men or women who deal with this type of voice, you will be able to relate to Quinn in that moment, and especially more so as you read. It's always a heartbreaking thing to see more of Quinn's mindset. However, we do see him growing in some way here, even finding romance. But I won't spoil too much on that end now, will I? But with that being said, let's move on to our next piece. So, as of the time of recording, I am currently reading the sequel novel Shadow's Reward, Book 2 of the Shadow Soul series. For those of you wondering, there are currently 4 out of the 5 books for this series out now, fully published and ready to read. So, if you're wondering how long you had to wait for the next novel, don't worry. There's already 4 books out for this 5-book series, so if you're really in the mood for a binge read, grab them all. You will not be disappointed, trust me. But as of right now of recording, I am currently reading Shadow's Reward, and one of the major strengths I can take from this, that I feel is going to be a major strength for Shadows in general, is that each novel is not going to be from Quinn's point of view. The first novel is to really kick off the series, but one of the main strengths of Shadow's Reward, as of right now, is that it has different points of view from a different character, someone who's in charge, taking the lead in a different part of the series. And I feel like that's going to be one of the greatest strengths, and has been one of the greatest strengths of the Dead Souls universe, that being allowing these other individuals to breathe and grow as characters all their own. It is not just primarily focused on Quinn, Rianne, Natalie, and Lucas. Even though they are major players in the game, they are not the only ones in the series that are focused on. We of course have evidence of this with Cora's individual short story. We have another one with Archie and things like that. And hell, Lucas and Natalie have their own little spin-off novella from A New Night. The author, I feel one of their greatest strengths is allowing these other characters to breathe. Not really something you see a lot with other series, at least in my point of view. More often than not, you have the very focused party, and we are stuck with these characters till the tail end. And while it is fun to watch them grow, sometimes it's fun to focus on the side characters and their own missions, their own stories. What do they have to tell? That's always a very fun aspect of Dead Souls, and really that's one thing I've loved about meeting indie creators. They allow other characters to grow. A great example of this would be the Fluorescence series by P. Anastasia, where each of the 4 books of that series was from a different point of view character. We had our main cast. However, each book was focused in a different point of view. And I felt like that was actually a really great strength, and that is something I'm seeing again here in the Dead Souls universe. But don't take my word for it. Check it out for yourself. And with that being said, let's move on to the final score. So, if I'm going to be completely honest, I feel like giving Shadow's Embrace a solid 8 out of 10. My only major complaint about this novel is that at times it did feel a little slow. But that is because this novel I feel is more of a setup piece for the rest of the series, allowing things to slowly grow and establish the base of what is to come for this new installment of the Dead Souls universe. Can that be a bit of a challenge? Yes. But I feel like once you really get into the motive of the story, once you really get into the tempo for it, that gradual build up to the climax and the eventual send-off for this series is really going to keep you coming back for more, just to find out what's going to happen next. Especially since, for a lot of supernatural folks, again, you get to see vampires waging a war against werewolves in the New World. Come on, that's gotta be fun. Either for those who like a little bit of military fiction, or vampires, or werewolves. There's a little bit of something in here for everyone. A little bit of drama, a little bit of romance. But don't take my word for it. Or if you do, feel free to check out the novel for yourself. Again, 4 of the books are already published and out, so if you really want a good series to binge read now is the best time. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for sticking around as long as you have. And if you want to hear more about this author, there is, of course, a playlist of their works on this channel if you want to hear more about them. Or if you want to hear about some of the other indie authors that I've covered on this channel, please feel free to click a link to that playlist as well for indie authors. I will leave a link at the end of this video for you all to see that as well. Once again, thank you all so much for sticking around as long as you have, and thank you for listening to this crazy man rambling about his favorite hobby, that being books. And I hope to see you all in the next video. I promise I will try to get more out soon. Thank you so much for your time and patience. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and have a great day, fellow readers. I will see you all in the next video.